So our case started when my twin boys were in preschool and they were in the special education program at our local district. They qualified for services under early childhood developmental delay, and they were receiving services through the preschool. So we were happy with their preschool services, but when it came time to transition from preschool to kindergarten, we were told by the district that they would be transferred to a self-contained program at a different school across town in our district. So they would not be in general education with their peers, and they would not be at their home school. So that is not what we envisioned for their education. So we disputed that with the district, and we're basically not given much of an option. And so we looked into the laws, and the laws that were helpful in our case is IDEA, so it's Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and those laws say that supplementary aids and services and other supports that are provided in regular education classes, other education-related settings, and in extracurricular and non-academic settings should enable children with disabilities to be educated with non-disabled children to the maximum extent appropriate in accordance with IDEA. So we knew that by being in a self-contained program with other disabled children for the majority of their day, about 80 to 90%, that they would not be educated to the maximum extent appropriate in that setting. And we wanted the supports and services to be brought to the children in their gen ed classrooms. So least restrictive environment means that supports and services are brought to the children in general education. If they are not able to make progress with those supports and services in place, it is only then that you move them to a more restrictive environment. So in our case, the district was jumping, basically skipping over general education whatsoever and not even providing the twins with an opportunity to show that they were capable of learning in that setting, and instead jumped right to the self-contained classroom. So really at the core of our dispute was around least restrictive environment laws and around general education versus self-contained classrooms. So we ended up filing a state complaint with the Michigan Department of Education, and they offered us stay put placement, which meant that our son Adam was to stay in his general education placement until the dispute was resolved. So the Michigan Department of Education was investigating, had all the evidence from both the district and from our family, and then they were set to make a decision in the case to see if our child was entitled to the services in the least restrictive environment, or if the district was violating any IDEA laws. While that was happening, the district was not thrilled with the way that the investigation was going, and they felt that things were being found in our favor. And so in order to stop the state complaint from moving forward, they filed due process against our family, which essentially is suing our family because it takes the case out of the procedural safeguards of filing a state complaint, and it takes it into the administrative hearing system, which requires attorneys and which basically stops the state from being able to complete their investigation and make a ruling in our case. So that's when really things escalated. We had no option but to get attorneys, and then the costs of litigation really started to increase for both our family and for the district. This case has gone on for almost 4 years, and in the 4 years, the district spent approximately $400,000 to $500,000 just in attorney fees. We were fortunate enough to have Michigan Protection and Advocacy Services represent our family, and they are federally funded and saw that this case was likely a case that was systemic. So if a school district can file due process against us for filing a state complaint, then other school districts in Michigan would then be able to do similar things to other families, and that then takes away our procedural safeguards that we're entitled to. So they represented us pro bono, which means they didn't charge us anything, and we were very grateful to have them on our side. So through many, many twists and turns over the last 4 years, our case ended up at the federal level, and just on January 8th, 2019, we received a settlement in the amount of $300,000. And in addition to the costs, which go towards our son's private school fees and attorney fees that were incurred by by Michigan Protection and Advocacy Services, the district also has to hire an inclusion expert, a national expert actually, to come in and assess the district's practices amongst kids with disabilities, and to see what changes and what what training staff might need, so that they can make sure that they're following IDEA laws and make sure to move more toward inclusion, rather than so many students ending up in these self-contained segregated classes. So that was a huge victory after 4 years. Through the process of the case, we ended up moving our son from the district into a private school where he's been fully included in general education for the last 2 years, and he's done beautifully. He's learning, he's growing, he's welcomed into their community, just as all the other kids are, and we've been really happy with his progress there, and just to be able to find a staff that embraced him, and a community that believes that all kids, regardless of ability or disability, should be included. And so we now have those fees covered through 8th grade for our son, and we also believe that because of our case, and because we continue to advocate, that other kids in the district and other families will benefit and will not have to go through the same thing that we did.